love the channel and find it useful in becoming a happy retiree. Subscribe today. Fred, what's going on? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Not much. I'm about a year away from retirement, and I purchased an annuity. And you hear a lot of bad things about annuities, and I'm wondering if it's worthwhile taking the expense hit to move it into a fund.
So you feel stuck. Fred, a couple of questions are important. What kind of annuity is it?
I believe it's a fixed rate annuity.
Okay, so you mean a fixed index annuity where
yes,
you have a kind of the sales pitch on that is you can't lose money, but it can go up with the market.
Yes.
I love that sales pitch, man. It's like the best pitch of all time. How about this? Oh, it's tied to the market, so you get your market upside or some of it, and the sales pitch is that you can get a big chunk of it, but you can never lose money. It sounds like the perfect investment, isn't it? It's like the easiest sales pitch on the planet. The problem is that there are really some really significant strings attached to that, number one, and there's a lot more to that story, as you can expect, because there's no free lunch, right? And you're right. The problem with these is once you get in them, there are these huge penalties if you change your mind. But we're going to talk about that. So important. A lot of folks own these things, and I want to give you my opinion on this. You bought an annuity. Tell me about what the penalty is to get out of this annuity.
I'm not sure. It's pretty steep. It's like 12% of what's in there.
A 12. Wait. So how much? Let me ask you this: how much of your portfolio, so percentage-wise, was this in a 401k or probably an IRA or outside an IRA?
No, outside. It was just monies I had that I needed to do something with.
Now, what percentage of your overall, let's call it retirement savings, is in this annuity?
About half.
About half. Wow. Okay. Here's the deal with these things, Fred, and this is what makes this difficult, is that just like you had mentioned, annuities the kind of annuity that you're in, whether it's they go by a couple different names. I still call them index annuity or fixed index annuities. And I know that they've modified the name on these a couple different times, but essentially you put money in, they tell you can't lose money. The catch on that, Fred, is that you can't take the money out for 7 years, 10 years, in your case, I don't know, 12 years. So they have these really long lockup periods where they put handcuffs on you. And that's the first way they say you can't lose money, is that, okay, well, you can't touch it for 10 years without paying a massive penalty. Usually that penalty is to pay back the commission that was paid to the broker that sold it. So that's one. And two, if you think about it, if you lock anything up, it's pretty tough to lose money over 10 years. Now, you look at almost any index, whether you look at real estate or publicly traded REITs or any kind of equities, whether it's large, mid, small, international, emerging markets, it's really tough to find an investment that you would put money into. Let's call it a publicly traded equity or index, and lose money if you had the discipline to actually stay invested and reinvest dividends for an entire decade. So part of this is that the way these annuity companies work is they're saying, look, we know, we're the annuity company, we know that over 10 years, we're pretty tough to lose money. But you don't know that. And we're going to kind of impose this handcuff system on you so that you're locked up for a decade, let's say, or more. And knowing that during that period of time, we can at least probably give you your money back over the course of 10 years. So that's part of the proposition here, is that your money's really locked up. And then if you want to access it, in many of these cases, you're allowed to access a portion of it, typically, let's call it 10% of the total per year. But I'm not a big fan of having a product dictate my liquidity. I don't like a product telling me that I can or cannot get to my money without paying a big chunk or a big penalty. So that's the first part. The second part is, what is your actual cost here? So let's call it 10%. You put in, let's say, $100,000. you if you wanted to get out of this thing, you get 90 back. I mean, that's a massive, massive penalty. It's a tremendous amount of money. And Fred here has put a big chunk of his own personal money in this. And so you have to understand really what is the hard cost. Sometimes you'll get bonuses on these things, and you might get a bonus, and then they take away the bonus, and that's really not a penalty. They're just kind of taking away some fictitious money they gave you to begin with. So you've got to really understand, are they actually penalizing your actual principal, or are they penalizing some sort of fictitious bonus that they gave you that you have to stay for 10 years anyway to keep? So you've got to understand that. My thought here is this. You really have to understand what is the opportunity cost of leaving it here. So if you were going to leave that money in cash anyway, or you were going to leave that money in short-term bonds, and the prospect for that is up 2% per year anyway, then you may want to leave the money, because you're not going to get, even though many of these annuities tell you and kind of sell you on the fact that you're going to get market upside. I don't know if I've ever seen one that really does that. I've seen so many of these products, and they say they're tied to the S&P 500, or they're tied to the NASDAQ, or they're tied to some stock index. And you think automatically, oh, wow, on average, stocks go up 10% a year. I'll take part of that. What's part of that? 5, 6, 7%? I'll take that per year. But the formulas don't allow for that. They typically, that's not what happens in the real world. The formula has something to do with the S&P 500, but then it gets capped, or it's a monthly amount, and you can only make so much per month, and that's not really how the S&P 500 works. So what you're left with is a product that has upside, from what I've seen, in best case scenarios, 2 to 3% in a given year. Now, if you're going to leave your money in cash, and you're okay not to touch something for 10 years, then okay, maybe it's okay to leave it where it is then stuck in this annuity. If you're just going to put it in treasury bonds, and you're going to make 2, maybe 3% a year for the next couple of years anyway, or next 10 years, maybe you'll leave it. But what I would rather do, and this is, I don't want to just say it's a terrible investment and not give you an alternative, Fred. What I would rather see for really short-term money, or really safe money, your conservative money, and we're talking about this today here on the show, bonds. The 10-year Treasury bond today is close to 3%. So if you want to buy an investment that is actually guaranteed by the U.S. government, not what a company says. Remember, guarantees are only as good as the guarantor. And when it's an annuity company that is guaranteeing you, quote, guaranteeing you money, you got to be careful. What happens if that company goes out of business? Then you've got a real problem. From my perspective, the only real safe money is in a U.S. Treasury bond. So what I would rather see somebody do, and this is something that's happened pretty recently, if you want to keep your money really safe, even short-term Treasury bonds now pay 2%. So I actually, this week, I was actually buying 1 and 2 year U.S. Treasury bonds because rates have gone up. And now, instead of getting a fraction of a percent, you can get 2%. I was buying Treasury bonds this week that are 1 year. So it matures in 12 months from now for a little over 2%. I mean, that is, now it doesn't sound like a lot. You're not jumping up and down. Nobody's giving you a high five because you're getting 2%. But interest rates have started to go up. And that's an important thing for everyone to understand, because if you want to really, truly have some sort of backing by the U.S. government and not a company saying, oh, hey, we're gonna do this and this for you, then that's really where I find real safety. If you want something that is very, very safe, you've got to look at some sort of treasury bond. And that's what the opportunities are starting as interest rates go up. So what I would tell you, Fred, is if the money was going to be your safe money anyway, maybe it's not worth the penalty. It doesn't sound like you know exactly what the penalty is. It's probably something like 10%. But if you look at this over your overall investment pie, here's the opportunity cost. If you think if stocks go up, let's call it on average, or even a diversified portfolio, let's say something really conservative like 7% a year, and this is, I'm telling you, your best case scenario is probably 2% a year. You're losing 5% a year to opportunity costs. So over 2 years, you've lost 10% on opportunity cost. And that's how I'd look at this. I'd say, well, I'll get out of this thing if my opportunity cost is 5% a year, 10% over 2 years. That's too much for me. And that's when I would, that if it were me, I would be I'd feel a lot better doing something simpler, no lockups, liquid, and just look at treasury bonds because they're presenting an opportunity right now. Hi, I'm Wes Moss, and thanks for taking a minute to hear about what's so different about my new book, You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think. So unlike other retirement books, this book will give you a step-by-step guide, whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, to learn from what these successful and happy retirees did to get there. I hope you enjoy the book, but more importantly, I know that it'll help you retire sooner than you think.